everyone. Long time no see. I've been absent for a while, since the beginning of the year. Mostly because I was in a play. I hadn't done any acting in like 10 years or something. So it was really nice to be part of this. It's community theater, everyone is an amateur, they're all amateur actors, except for the people like writing the play and creating the play. They're all professionals, but all the actors are members of the community. So it had people from 15 years old to 80 something years old, and it was really rewarding. I didn't remember how it felt to act and to be on the stage, and I really like that feeling, so I really want to do more of it now and bring that part of art back into my life. But yeah, I was just not very good at dealing with the difference in my scheduling, and also we had our pictures taken during the rehearsals, and I was struggling a little with seeing myself in pictures, and sometimes your self-esteem is just not in the best place, and so I thought it was for the best to not do videos for a while, but I'm very excited to come back to it now. Thank you for watching this right now. I have a lot of fun doing it. I wish I was better at keeping a consistent schedule, but it's what I'm able to do now. Hopefully I'll be on track from now on. And so I've been reading, not as much as I hoped, but quite a few books, and I thought it would be nice to update you on all the reads, update you on all of the books that I've read so far this year. There's been two interesting changes to my reading life. First, a new service is available now in Portugal called Bibliolab. It's basically Libby, but for the Portuguese libraries. And I already had two library cards from Lisbon and from my hometown, and so now I can access free ebooks. And so I've just been taking advantage of that. Books in Portuguese are very expensive, and so it has been nice to have such easy access to them without having to leave my house. I'm still using Libby as well, so I haven't been reading that much from my physical TBR, which is a shame, and I hope now I'll change that a little bit. I just got a little excited with the offerings on Bibliolab and some other things. And the other interesting development is that I got a new e-reader, and this is the Books Palma. I saw it on Books Unbound. They made an episode on their podcast talking about this, and I found it on Vinted secondhand by a very nice price. Let's say that it was much better than buying it new, and also I don't think it's available here in Portugal like from usual retailers. You can find it from marketplaces and stuff. So I got it, and I really like it. I keep it in my pocket, and it's the size of a phone, so it's much easier to transport than a usual e-reader like a Kindle or something. Not that they are big or very heavy, but this is such lightweight, and I keep it with myself all day, and when I have a break I just read from it. So I feel like I've been reading more than I did last year, for example, just because I can just grab it and read from it. So this has been a difference in my usual reading habits. And so what have I read so far this year? Okay, I started the year with a physical read, It was The Barefoot Woman by scholastic mukasonga. This is a memoir. Scholastic mukasonga is from Rwanda, and she fortunately managed to leave the country before the 1994 genocide, but unfortunately most of her family did not. And so this book is just her remembering what life was like in Rwanda. There was already a system of separating the Tutsis from the Hutus. She's a member of the Tutsi minority, so they were already in a state of apartheid-like, where they were separated and they didn't have the same opportunities. And she talks about it, and mostly she talks about her mother and what she did for the community and a lot of things that happened during that period of her childhood and going to school and all the different things that happened. And so it's very beautiful. It's the writing is amazing. I really want to read other books by her. The book that I wanted to read at first was Cockroaches, because I saw Anna Wallace Johnson talking about it, and I still want to read that at some point, because I was really transfixed. Obviously the subject matter itself grabs your attention and you just want to learn more about it, and it's very special that these people that are no longer here with no fault of their own are memorialized here, and so they won't be forgotten. And I think that's very beautiful and very important. So yeah, I started the year very well, and I don't know if it's 5 stars. I think it is. It was just really good. Next, I read The Titan's Curse. This is the third book in the Percy Jackson series. These are just very fun. They were a middle grade fantasy about these kids that are what's it called? Demigods. Yeah, one of their parents was a god and the other was a human, and so they go to a special camp and academy and things ensue. So hijinks ensue. So I had a lot of fun with the first and the second book, and so I just wanted something fun and light after reading about genocide. So I thought it was the weakest of the three from what I've read. One of the characters is apart from the main narrative most of the book, and is one of the characters that I like the most. So I think the book really suffered from it, and yeah, it was fine. It was just fine. So I think I'll continue with this series eventually, but it's not a priority at the moment. Next, I read Confessions by Catherine Harry. This is an ARC that I got. I had signed up to NetGalley a couple of years ago, and then I stopped doing it because I was overwhelmed with all physical TBRs, digital TBRs, everything. But this year I just wanted to get back to it. I think it's a gift to be able to read books before they come out, and sometimes help an author spread the word. And I'm just a very small part of this community with a very small audience, but I don't know, maybe I can convince one person to read the book, and I think that would be great. Unfortunately, I didn't love this one. It's not a terrible book by any means. It's a debut. It's about this Irish family. It's told, you go back and forth in the timeline. You follow different generations of this family. Part grows up in the United States, the other in Ireland. and it was just a little messy for my liking. There's just too much happening, and also at the same time nothing happens. I feel like the author wanted to bring up a lot of important topics such as abortion and women's rights, but every time something actually interesting was about to happen, we would just jump forward in time or back in time, and so for me it lacked the impact that I think the author wanted it to have, and so it was just a chore to get through at some point. There's some mysteries, but they're just a little soap opera-y to me. I don't know. It has some interesting passages. I underlined some of them, but overall it was just an okay book. But I'm sure some people will find a lot more to love than I did. Next, I read Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. Okay, I don't know how to talk about this book. It's obviously a very beloved novel. Melchor is, I think it has won like International Booker Prize or something. And I think it deserves it. I think it's a great book. But at the same time, it was really, it wore me down. It wore me down. It's just very raw, cruel, and I think that word cruel just didn't leave me throughout the entire time I was reading. Everything bad that you can imagine happens in this book. And the narration makes you feel it, and I understand it. I think it's important to mention this violence against women, against gender non-conforming people. I wish I had liked it more. I really do. It was really hard. I was exhausted reading it, and maybe I'll come back to it in a year or something, and maybe I will love it now that I'm prepared for what I'm getting. So I do recommend it. It's very hard for me to talk about this book because I have so much mixed feelings about it. I thought it was brilliant, and I hated every second of reading it at the same time. I also read in the Portuguese translation. I don't know if the English translation would be easier for me, because I think words in my first language have a lot more impact than they have in English, for example. And maybe if I read it in the English translation or in the original Spanish, maybe it would be easier for me because the words don't grate me so much. Maybe I'll try that. I think that would be an interesting exercise, actually. Next, I read, Fahrenheit 451. I think that's how you usually say it. This is a dystopian. It's a very famous a member of the pantheon of dystopian novels alongside Brave New World and 1984. This is like the opposite to Hurricane Season. I think it's a great idea. It's very easy to read. I read it so fast. It's very accessible, and I thought it just lacked something. I think the execution is very lacking. Maybe if I read it when it came out in that context, it would be different and more impactful. But after having read so many dystopians and that genre being a little overdone. Maybe at this point, I think it didn't bring anything new to me. There's some very interesting ideas, but it was just an okay book for me. I'm glad I read it because it has been very influential, but it just didn't leave a very lasting impression on me. Next, I read a book that I've been wanting to read for the longest time. It's Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This is a book from Nigeria. The author is from Nigeria, and it's a classic and it's a very good book. I had a very good time reading it. It's about this man. He's growing up in his tribe and he's a very important member of it. His father was not seen very positively in the community, and so he feels that he has to prove himself constantly. He doesn't allow himself to be seen as weak. So he has very interesting commentary on masculinity, and then he commits a crime and he has to be sent away from that tribe to another one. And when he's allowed to come back, things have changed. And if you know any history, you might realize what has probably changed in this community. And I think it was very insightful, very well done. And I also had a great time reading it, even though it's very sad and the ending left me completely empty, feeling a little bit empty and useless. But I had a really great time reading it. I think it should be mandatory reading for everyone. I think it's a really important novel, and I'm very glad to have read it finally. In the same vein, I read afterwards White Sargasso Sea by John Rees. I love Jane Eyre since I was a teen, and so I've been wanting to read this novel that is a commentary on Jane Eyre and criticizes the colonial aspects of it that were not addressed at the time. Talks about the mad woman in the attic, Bertha, and I think the idea is great. I was on the story side in the beginning, but it just maybe I didn't get it. It lost me completely. I think the character was not developed that much. I feel like I still don't understand. Her name here is not Bertha, I think it's Antoinette. Maybe. I feel like I don't know her any more than I did before. Okay, maybe a little bit more, but there's some very interesting criticisms. I think it gives a very interesting historical context to the original, but it left me a little bit underwhelmed, unfortunately. Maybe I just didn't get it. I don't know. I was sad because I thought I would love it and I didn't. So sometimes that happens. It's okay. So next I read Limpa by Alia Trabuco Zeran. I think in English it's Clean. This is a novel from Chile. This also was very intense. Now I'm realizing that everything was really intense afterwards. This is about a housemaid that works for a wealthy family, and you know from the beginning that their child has died. And then you go back in time from when she first moved into their house, and you work there for 7 years or 8 years, something like that. And it's just a very good portrait of class disparity, of rich people doing things that are horrible without even realizing they're being horrible. It's just they don't see her as the same as them. And so they do things unwillingly or unknowingly that are horrible, dehumanizing. And she has to put up with it for years because she doesn't have any other choice. And there's just really sad parts, really sad, and you really feel for the main character. So I think it's a very successful novel. The ending just left me a little underwhelmed, but the journey was very good. Afterwards, I read Pageboy by Elliot Page. This is his memoir. He's a very successful actor, so he talks about a lot of the films he has done, his journey for just coming out as transgender, first coming out as a lesbian, what was perceived at the time. It's obviously very nice to see someone so a celebrity talking about this topic and sharing their story, but in my opinion it was not very well done. I feel like he's still very guarded and didn't let himself open up much. The structure of the memoir also I wasn't a fan of. You go back and forth in time without any context, so sometimes you're just completely lost in what time period are we? when was this? And I think it's not as insightful or as groundbreaking as it could have been. Maybe he'll do another one when he feels more comfortable sharing his feelings, his thoughts. Who knows? We'll wait to see. Afterwards, I read Sunrise on the Reaping. This is a Hunger Games prequel. When I was a teenager, I loved the Hunger Games. I still do. I still love the Hunger Games. I think it's a very interesting story, a very well-built world by Suzanne Collins. And this is Hamish's story, so I was very excited to read it. Unfortunately, I also didn't particularly love it. I think it felt very rushed, especially towards the ending. I think the beginning is much done with care, and then the story goes forward and it's just very messy for my particular taste. Obviously there's some horrifying sequences. It's very heartbreaking to see what happens to the characters, but I didn't feel that it was very well written. I think it didn't add that much, to be honest, to our perception of the world. We understand Hamish a little bit better, but he was so dull for most of it. He felt very passive, and that was weird. I didn't expect that, and the writing just started to get on my nerves a lot at the end. A lot of songs and poems that I felt weren't adding that much to the story, so I don't know, I was a little bit underwhelmed with it. I had fun because I love that universe, so it was nice to come back to it and talk to my friends about it, but it wasn't a complete win for me. So afterwards I read Chernobyl's Prayer by Svetlana Alexievich. I hope that's right. She's a Nobel Prize in Literature winner. I've wanted to read a book by her for a long time, and it was available on Bibliolab, so that was nice. It's heartbreaking, obviously. The way that Svetlana writes is a chorus of voices. She interviewed thousands of people that either worked at the Chernobyl station, or lived in Pripyat, or lived in Belarus. So a lot of people that were affected by the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. And she interviews from the people that were there, not the firefighters, because unfortunately they didn't make it, but their families. She interviews children, parents of children that unfortunately were born with issues due to the radiation. She interviews government officials, teachers, so it's you feel like you're getting the whole view of what happens. Usually books are from one point of view, or from just connected people, and these people are connected by one event, but they have very different opinions, very different perspectives. They were affected in very different ways, and so it's a very valuable book to understand the impact it had. And so I think it's just a good read for anyone, really. I think everyone can benefit from reading this. I knew some things because of obviously the show, but I also read, what's it called? Chernobyl, History of the Disaster or something. That's more of scientific and political non-fiction book that analyzes everything. I also think it's a great book. I love that. It explained the explosion itself really well. I think anyone can understand it from that book. So yeah, I've been trying to check some books that I've had on my list for years, and I'm glad I'm doing that. Afterwards, I read what is probably my favorite book I've read so far this year, and the last one that I finished. It's The Years by Annie Ernaux. Wait, I read another Annie Ernaux this year, didn't I? Did I read Happening? Okay, so I also read Happening this year by Annie Ernaux, but I didn't have it here. So I had read last year another Annie Ernaux book. It was called I Remain in Darkness, and it was about her mother going through Alzheimer's. And from what I understand, Annie Ernaux usually writes very short books about very particular points of her life. So Happening is about an abortion that she had when she was studying in university, and it was illegal in France at the time. So it was horrible what she had to go through to manage to do it. I can't imagine having to go through that. Unfortunately, a lot of places in the world that's still happening. Women are put at risk to do these procedures, and so I think it's a very topical and important book for everyone to read, to understand what it's like to not have reproductive freedom. It was very intense and superbly written. And then this last book that I read is The Years, which is a lot different than her other work. This is such an interesting way to tell a story. She's basically telling her story from when she was born in 1940 until 2006, but she's also telling her generation story. So she uses the we as she's speaking for the entirety of the generation that she's a part of. But she also sometimes pinpoints interesting moments in her own life, and she looks at photographs and she describes them. So it's a very particular, unique book, and I was just amazed by it, honestly. She's not nostalgic. She's not just saying the good things like, oh, we were the greatest generation or something like that. No, she's not afraid to point a finger and say, look how we were spineless, look how we didn't fight enough, look how racist we were. And I think that's rare, particularly in that generation. So it's an achievement. Also, she's a Nobel Prize winner, so she doesn't need my compliments, but she gets it. I'm now completely convinced that I have to read every single thing she has ever written. I've read 3. There's still a lot more, but they're all very tiny. So this is a journey that hopefully you'll stay on. Me and Annie Ernaux, a love story. Now I'm reading Han Kang, Human Acts. I've not read much, but I'm loving it so far. But this is my problem with Han Kang. I'm loving, when I start her books, I'm always loving them in the beginning, and then she completely loses me in the middle until the end. And I hope this time it will be different, because the topic, again, I think you can see by my choices that I really like literature that analyzes important historic events. And this is about the Guangzhou uprising, yes, in 1980, where a lot of students were murdered by the state in South Korea, and so I'm very interested to read about it. And I will probably pick up The Tale of Genji afterwards. I got this in Japan when I visited last year, and I really want to read it because I'm hosting a literary walk soon, and it's gonna be about women in literature. Literature by women. So yeah, I'm doing some research, and I'm gonna choose the books I'm reading based on it. Oh, also I'm reading on my e-reader Imposium by Olga Tokarczuk. I've read Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by her, and it's one of my favorite books of all time, so I've wanted to read other books by her for a long time, and this was available on Bibliolet, so I just had to take the opportunity, and so far I'm really enjoying it. There's something going on in that sanatorium, and it's not gonna be any good, I'm sure of it. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching this. Comment anything you want. I'll be happy to read it. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time. Bye!